Now I have a simple question for you this evening, which is, who do you trust, Daniel Andrews or the Victoria Police, to tell you the truth about what is really happening in the lockdown curfew city of Melbourne and the state that is suffering so desperately in Victoria? We showed you last night that Daniel Andrews used as one of the key ramp-ups to the curfew part of the lockdown that so many people who were supposed to be self-isolating at home, they just weren't doing it. This from July 30.
Disappointingly, I have to inform you that there were more than 130 unsuccessful visits, so around 1 in 4 people cannot be found at home. There'll be a multitude of reasons for that, but what I can confirm for you is that more than 100 cases have been referred to Victoria Police. It is simply unacceptable for you to have this virus and not be at home. If you're out doing other things, there may be a handful who are out getting some fresh air. That does not explain these numbers. These numbers go well and truly beyond anything like that, and all that will do is spread the virus.
Now, it was pretty obvious that the whole joint had to go into lockdown because hundreds of cases were starting to build up because of the Victorian government's stuffed-up handling of hotel quarantine. But the curfew part of it was in part built upon and sold to the public of Victoria because these people were refusing to isolate. 3 days later, after making that statement, which was similar to one he had made 9 days earlier, this is what Daniel Andrews released when he was announcing a curfew that would start at 6 o'clock. That stage 4 would exist at 6 p.m. and then the lockdowns would be from 8 p.m. the next day. I know Victorians are with me when they say too many people are not taking this seriously. And too many people are not taking it seriously means that too many other people are having to plan funerals for those they love. No, Premier, they were doing it because of hotel quarantine. Because as the police confirmed yesterday, as we showed you on this program last night, one of the key pillars behind a curfew, the first in Australia's history, that free citizens were told it was a crime to leave their house for dinner, and I mean picking up takeaway dinner after 8 p.m. at night, well, it wasn't true. Here's the police yesterday.
The community's been outstanding. The community compliance is outstanding.
So 42 people have been fined for not isolating?
Yes. Out
of more than 29,000 spot checks? Yep. So the Premier a few weeks ago said that his data showed, because of the door knocks, about 1 in 4 Victorians weren't isolating. It's clearly a lot lower than 1 in 4, you would say?
Yes, yes. There's a range of reasons people can leave their homes. It could be for medical supplies, it could be for medical attention. So when we've been dealing with the people and we are inquiring into the matter, the reasons they're providing for us were in accordance with the CHAR directions.
So Andrews wasn't telling the truth. When the police investigated all of those people and supposedly 1 in 4 who were refusing to self-isolate, they all had a reason why they weren't self-isolating. It wasn't a justification for the curfew that still Victorians will have to live with for a few more weeks to come. And he's still threatening you. Stage 5. Will it happen? What is it? Does it exist? If we don't do more testing, then we'll have to extend the lockdown. Well, today, and we are indebted to the reporters from this television channel, the Herald Sun and the Australian, who are the ones who are willing to look this bloke in the eye and ask him the most obvious of questions, because there are so many people representing the rest of the media in Melbourne who feel uncomfortable, who don't want to question the chairman. Now, you may have seen a couple of seconds of this either in other shows or probably not on the 6 p.m. news tonight, but I want to take a couple of minutes to show you how excruciating this process is about trying to get information out of a bloke who has been contradicted by the police in Victoria. Roll the tape.
Premier, 3 days before you announced stage 4 lockdown, you made a big part of your press conference that 1 in 4 Victorians who were meant to be self-isolating were not found to be at home. Most of those cases were referred to Victoria Police. This was very concerning for a lot of people to hear. Sure. It turns out that less than 1% of Victorians were actually breaching self-isolation rules. So was it irresponsible of you to jump to conclusions and let Victorians believe that far more people were breaching self-isolation and potentially spreading this virus when that was not the case?
I think you've answered your question in the way you framed it. I indicated they weren't at home. They weren't at home.
See, halfway through, when our reporter was asking him that question, he's already decided to write it off. He's already decided, I won't answer, because if I don't answer it, or I give no real sexy words, then nobody else is going to run it. Remember, this is exactly the same tactic, but in reverse as the one I've showed you before. When they want a grab to make it onto television, you mention the television reporter's name because, of course, the ego kicks in and then they end up running that grab, as they did when the Ooga Boogers were running around a few weeks ago on Channel 7 and Channel 9 because he mentioned the reporters. It continues.
So why were you so confident, or why did you go ahead with that press conference and say that 1 in 4 Victorians were not found to be at home, but you took such a long time in following up how many people had actually been fined?
If you're asking me why did I say that 1 in 4 people weren't home, because 1 in 4 people weren't home.
Okay.
That's why I said that.
So this strategy is to make it look like the person asking the questions is being unreasonable. You eventually create a sense of discomfort inside the room, so the rest of the reporters, they all take a step back. A little bit like at school when everyone egged you on and then they all took a step back when you were the one who got caught. This continues and the questions are completely fair, completely reasonable. Remember, yesterday the police blew a hole in the justification for the first lockdown in the history of this country.
It's just quite...
You most certainly can. No, Lundy, no, that's fine. Let's keep going.
Oh, you've had your questions. I didn't answer them. I wrote you off, but I tried to go somewhere else. See? The media did their job because they wanted to change the subject, because he wasn't going to answer those questions. They didn't do what normally you do, and you see this in federal politics when there's a minister who's on the run. Basically, everyone starts to ask versions of the same questions. I follow up on what he said, I follow up on what she said, and then we start to get closer and closer to an answer. But when everyone steps back and says, let's let the Sheila from Sky News just swing, Andrews knows he can try to change the subject. But thankfully there were people who are willing to keep asking the question.
My last question on this. So
Sure.
This was 3 days before Stage 4 lockdown was announced. It was then a big part of the announcement on Stage 4 lockdown that, in fact, in the media release it says, I know Victorians are with me when I say too many people are not taking this seriously, and too many people not taking this seriously means too many other people are having to plan funerals for those they love.
Yes.
So I suppose that kind of really points the finger at Victorians doing the wrong thing, and we now know that it's far less that Victorians were doing the wrong thing. They weren't. We thought it could have been as high as 1 in 4 Victorians were breaching self-isolation. We now know it's less than 1%. So why did you make that such a big part of your announcement during Stage 4 lockdown instead of, say, acknowledging your government's failures in hotel quarantine?
Oh, so that's the real question. I'm sorry, we're building up to that. I've acknowledged that there have been mistakes made. I've set up an inquiry to give us the answers that we need. I think we've now got to the real question, and I think what I've done, what I've said all the way along is consistent.
This bloke is very slippery. He's very good at what he does because he's very good at, again, knowing how to get something on the TV news and knowing how to marginalise a young professional woman who's trying to ask the Premier a question he doesn't want to answer. But as you heard, there were people in that room desperate to move it on. Oh, I'll help you out, Premier. One final exchange, though, was that she did get one very good hit in on the Premier. And just watch his face. He doesn't like it.
Okay, I won't ask about hotel quarantine. Why did you blame
you
Victorians on the day of Stage 4 lockdown?
Pardon me, sorry?
Why did you blame Victorians on the day you were announcing Stage 4 lockdown?
I didn't do any such thing. And if you...
But say each of us know someone who has not been following the rules as well as they should have, and you did use the word that you were frustrated that such a large majority of people were not following the rules. So I understand that you don't like the question, but there is a valid point that you were blaming Victorians.
No, there's not a question of whether I like the question or not. That's completely irrelevant and not necessarily accurate. Alex, can I say?
Sorry that you didn't blame people for the spread of the virus, people not isolating for the spread of the virus. Is that what you're saying is not accurate?
Alex is a reporter with the Herald Sun who stepped in to do what should have been done by others, but sadly was not. Hold this bloke's feet to the fire. Victoria Police yesterday blew away the whole justification for the entire population of Melbourne being told they can't go outside. It is against the law between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. The very people who have to live under the same rules. But one or two didn't even have the balls to ask the person in charge when the lie was exposed. Well done, Gabby. We're proud of you here at Sky News. Well done to Alex at the Herald Sun, and well done to Rachel at the Australian. What a surprise. The boys' club didn't step up. And we should tell you as well that we are now almost at the halfway point of the lockdown situation in Victoria. And the restrictions that currently exist in regional Victoria are a joke. They should be freed from those restrictions now. Not next week, not in 2 weeks' time, because here are the numbers. Of the 78 local council areas in all of Victoria, 47 have less than 20 cases. 41 have less than 10 and 23 have 0. Otherwise known as 337,199 people live in council areas that currently have 0 cases.